Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
Well, this is for anybody who owns a company, small, medium-sized business. Maybe you're responsible for the management end of that. How's your HR situation going on? When those situations come up, how do you handle them? Have you ever thought about outsourcing it, having somebody take care of the entire HR background of your company? I found one for you. We're going to learn more about this whole process. And she is the CEO and president of SOAR HR Consulting LLC. Katie Corum joins us here on the program. Hey, Katie, how you doing?
Hey, Steve, I'm doing great. How are you?
Well, now I've spoken to people that do HR. You're known as a fractional HR company. Do I have that right?
That's correct. Fractional HR and HR consulting. Yes.
What does that mean?
So the terminology didn't seem to be as popular as it has been the last 2 years now. In fact, to be able to break it down, if you will, no pun intended, but for companies that can't necessarily afford a full-time HR director, HR manager that would want to leverage utilizing a professional for 5 hours, 10 hours a month, being able to either do project or hourly based work. That's it in essence. So still being their strategic partner in their side pocket.
Gotcha. So fractional, it's a word, but essentially you are an HR company that other companies can rely on to take care of all of that stuff.
Absolutely.
Okay. When we talk about that stuff, what are some of those services that you offer?
Sure. So you think of compliance, you think of onboarding, right? When a new hire starts within an organization. So I actually create digitalized employee handbooks. We'll talk about that a little more later. Coaching and training, even for companies that already have an HR manager or HR director, sometimes it's just nice to have a fresh face of somebody else being able to do the presentation from an outside perspective, to hear those challenges and doing a SWOT analysis, to find out what's working, what's not, and how we can work together to strategize and improving those challenges. Negotiating benefits with brokers on their behalf. I can do everything from soup to nuts, from the negotiation to the presentation to sharing stories of utilization for it to click for employees instead of standing there on stage doing a definition of what an HMO or a PPO is. Cleaning up data in the systems, making sure companies get the best bang for their buck and they're not being overcharged on payroll, benefits, or other HR services.
What's the difference between fractional HR, call it traditional HR, and then the in-house department that some companies have?
So some individuals will have a full-time HR professional on site. Or let's say for small to mid-sized businesses, they don't. The office manager, the executive assistant, the CEO, the CFO is trying to do their job and HR. No disrespect, but they're not trained on that. They're not trained on HR law and compliance. They might not feel comfortable doing employee relations investigations, but they're there, they're on site, they're trying to do their job, they're trying to do HR. But being able to have a fractional HR professional to be able to work with you, a few hours a month, a few days a week, being that individual in your corner to be able to protect your company against any potential lawsuits, to making sure your company's in compliance, to disconnecting and reconnecting, the communication issues, the management issues, the leadership issues, and system issues.
I see that so clear, especially with a lot of medical practices. Now, a lot of larger companies have swallowed up the smaller ones, but for the specialized, like a foot and ankle practice or a cosmetic surgeon, where they're not part of a conglomerate, you have the office manager typically trying to take care of the HR. She's running the office, and now she has to run the HR and take care of all of that. I can't imagine how that person handles all of that. It's a lot.
It is a lot. It is a lot. One of the features that I'm proud of that also kind of differentiates what we offer at SOAR HR Consulting LLC is that for example, one of the things is the employee handbook. We don't just hand over a handbook, no offense, but legal and some HR consultants may just hand over that handbook. I'm committed to be able to create a digitalized, customizable employee handbook for companies, no matter if they have employees in one state or remotely across the US. And once that digital link is set and sent over to them, I will commit a year to being in their corner, to making sure that they have any and all updates that may happen within those states. And I'll get it in real time because I partner with a national law firm. There's no price to be paid for peace of mind. I mean, there is, but there's not. And just last year alone in the United States, there was well over 100 new policies, federal and state regulations that occurred in the US. So
Wow.
It's bananas. It's a lot to keep up with. So they don't need to be doing that. Allow us to help them.
The digital thing is such a great idea because companies that I've worked for in the past, and the last company that I do a bunch of different things, but I was on staff on one company and a broadcast platform, company handbook, 100 pages stapled together. Here you go, thrown in the file cabinet drawer, and then you refer to it. But to your point, things are always changing. So the handbook is not updated. What a great way to get it done in terms of technology, having it online where things can be updated. And I'm assuming that there could be just like Google. I got notifications from Google. They changed their policy. All of my Gmail addresses, I've got emails to them, just letting you know, we're changing it in May. The heads up that, there has been a change to policy. Technology. We're talking about technology here with that. Can we look at HR and technology today and some of the other things that support it?
Absolutely. And I'm glad you brought that up. It kind of goes hand in hand with this. So speaking on one of two things here for a minute, the handbooks and HR metrics. So with the handbook, a lot of companies don't realize or recognize the fact that they can actually partner with their payroll companies to set up electronic onboarding. By setting up electronic onboarding and then SOAR HR providing the digital link, you can literally have a new hire be able to go onto a system, fill out their W-4, their application, their I-9, everything, and view their electronic version of the handbook. And then day one, they hit the ground running. They don't have to spend half the day or a full day with HR. So that literally streamlines the process. It allows them to have the time to be able to be introduced to their mentor, their boss, do a tour around the office, etc. Go grab a coffee. But it's giving a few hours back for HR to focus on the strategic things they need to do. It's allowing the company and the managers and the new peers to be able to get to know that individual, make them successful, right? And those first 30 to 60 days, they're very impactful for a new hire in an organization to see where the tenure will be or not be for them within the organization. The other thing is HR metrics. A lot of times, whether you are in HR or your office management or your C-suite executive, you have all of this data at your fingertips. Being able to create and customize monthly reports, quarterly, yearly reports to find out what's your organization's impact, what is your tenure within the organization? If you've had several terminations, have you ran a report to find out what is the biggest pain point for your organization and fix it? I want to get businesses to change the mindset from being reactive, thinking that they might not need HR, and let's just wait until, God forbid, we need a lawsuit to happen, and then, okay, we do need HR. I want to change that to being proactive rather than reactive.
Based on what you just said, the last part there in terms of the lawsuit, let's say that you're working with a company. I'm going totally hypothetical here. You're working with a company, something comes up.
Yeah.
There's legal involved. There may be a trial, just saying. In the event of that, would you be available to support that based on your work with that company?
Yeah, absolutely. I would be. So anything that we know, we have to notate. We have to keep track of. If it's an employee relations investigation, absolutely, we have to get involved. We have to do our due diligence and investigations. One of the things that I still see, and it's now 2024, that's still happening in workplaces, is the fact that I'm still seeing and hearing managers are not documenting. It might be a pain in the tuchus, But guess what? By doing the right thing, by being trained on progressive counseling and being able to work with your employees to try to better improve any performance or behavior issues, you're going to save the company, any potential liability, risk, lawsuit, etc. So that's why it's good to be trained. Again, the mindset of being proactive rather than reactive. So it's very important. It's still a pending issue.
Yeah, well, the documentation is so important. I have friends that make fun of me and they say, "Yeah, why don't you delete your emails? Well, why don't you read it?" I have one that just cleans out her inbox. I'm like, no, 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 no. I'll pay a couple of bucks for the extra storage just
Yeah.
because you never know. You need a record of everything and you have it. So why would you delete it? I never understood that.
Yeah.
It's just dumb.
No, absolutely.
How has things changed since COVID?
Oh, goodness. A lot has changed since COVID.
The
I
whole
just,
landscape, like, how that has influenced fractional HR services in terms of what you do, how you've had to respond to the changes?
yeah. There has been a huge impact on everybody across the world, but even in organizations from the remote work to DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion. I've never seen as many HR professionals as I've seen in the past few years leave corporate, like myself, and starting fractional HR and HR consulting services. And for me, I just didn't want to collect a warm seat working for one company anymore. I felt that I could help more than one by being my own boss. But it's absolutely changed the dynamic of HR and it's rocked our world, but maybe in a good way. Right now there's a lot of layoffs happening across the country. But I think even more so it's detrimental to fractional professionals, whether it's HR, fractional CFO, fractional marketing, that being able to still leverage having those individuals in your corner of your organization. So you might not be able to afford a full-time individual, but I think still having a space for the fractional professionals to be able to help you along the way, to be in compliance, to be grounded, to be successful and profitable.
You popped something in my head as my brain works. You say something
Yeah.
and then, drops it
Me
from the
too.
sky or something comes up.
Yeah.
Nonprofits. I'm very aware, shall we say, in what I do, of a nonprofit that had lawsuits
Mm,
pending, and it was an HR situation. And one in particular didn't have somebody strongly in place in the HR department. Because you think, how's that ever going to happen? Really? Employers are going to sue a not-for-profit. Yeah. So I'm just bringing that up. If there is anybody listening or watching that's connected with a nonprofit and you don't have a solid HR structure, you need one. You
yeah.
totally do.
No, I just did a presentation last week at Cox Science Museum here in West Palm Beach, Florida. And it was a private training that I had done for several nonprofits in the community.
Mm.
But they were I was pouring my heart into it, giving all the tips and tricks from what I learned over the years in HR and just how they can leverage utilizing these skill sets and tools within their organizations through their challenges, whether it's with their boss, the owners, the employees, the managers. Absolutely. Anybody can be sued. There's no discrimination there. It's how do you treat your employees? How do you engage them? How do you recognize them? How do you empower them? How do you develop them? If companies are doing this, employees leave. It's not just because of a bad boss. They leave because they're not appreciated and they're not developed. So they don't just come to work for a paycheck and make friends.
Right.
Super important. And I think if anything, since COVID, when everybody had to work from home immediately and everybody's scrambling, all these businesses trying to figure it out,
Mm.
the skilling, if you will, they now call upskilling, and developing employees and working remotely using LMS, which is learning management systems or skill paths, various systems like that. And that has become more integral in workplaces now. So if companies weren't listening before, they are now. Training and coaching is absolutely detrimental to the development of the organization.
Wow. I want to get to some of that technology in a moment
Mhm.
and that innovation, but can you take us on your journey, Katie? How did this begin for you? It sounded like you were working for a company at some point in HR, and you're here. So take us along your journey.
Yeah. I always knew I liked helping people, but I just, decided to go in the business realm of it and have been doing it for 25 years. But early on in my career, having moved back down from the Midwest to Florida, I had gone through some downsizings and layoffs and job restructurings. And at the time, in my early 20s, I said, why me? Why is this happening? But then, as I now say, from grit to grace, we have to go through these challenges and trying times in order to be able to develop ourselves, to be able to learn from our mistakes, to be able to know that we can make it more simplified for somebody else, or we can empathize with somebody else because of what they are now going through that we already did. And so I kind of bounced back and forth between working for PEOs, like the ADP Total Sources and Paychecks of the world, to
Mm.
various corporate organizations here in South Florida. At the end of the day, there's still the basic foundation to be able to care and show that you are listening, that you do have an open door policy, that you want to make sure your employees are engaged. But I just found over the course of the last few years, I had to make one or two tough decisions in walking away from organizations that I loved because they just weren't aligning, and that's okay. Because you get to learn, what works, what doesn't, but you're there, to want to make a difference. And so I think it's detrimental for organizations to also allow HR to have a voice, because we are that fine line that walks that trapeze, if you will, between the C-suite executives and the employees. So we are there to communicate with the staff based on what the owners want, but
Hmm.
there has to be trust with the employees to say, well, what about that open door policy? Because if they can't trust to come to HR to speak with us, then the trust is gone. The foundation is cracked and they will leave. So it's absolutely detrimental. And I don't mind that challenge. Used to be a competitive Irish dancer for 16 years. So I like being kept on my toes. So I don't mind that challenge, but we always have to kind of continually on a daily basis check ourselves on that trapeze line and finding that balance and making sure that both sides are heard, respected, and developed.
Thank you for using the T word. Trust is so essential for happy employees. And once that trust is gone, they're not staying. They've already
Yeah.
quietly quit. It
Yeah.
just, yeah, especially, and I've been in those scenarios. Not about me, but I can relate to all of this, where the owner of a company had said, this is years ago, yeah, I'll always let you know if things are not good, and there could be some challenges here. That if there's going to be a layoff or whatever, just let me know. That's all good. Just let me
Mhm.
gave his word, he gave a number of times, and then one November Saturday morning, I wake up, check my email, and it's an email from him, and things have changed. They're letting people go. It's like, thanks, buddy.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's just not the way that companies should operate. And
Oh,
it may have been a factor. It was a smaller company. May have been a factor in that just didn't have the infrastructure. If you had somebody to rely on, you probably do a lot of dirty work from time to time.
yeah. Got to wear gloves.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it is what it is. I mean, things change within a company, right?
Yeah. Well, and so I want to flip for a second because I know we're close to time, but I wanted to present maybe one or two things for companies to even think about. Because there's the good, the bad, and the ugly, as
Sure.
I like to say.
Sure.
Um, doing performance reviews. I've had small clients with employees coming up to me saying they haven't had a review in 3 years or 5 years. I'm like, that's bananas. So I think being able to have these conversations, being able to, make sure that employees are recognized, but it's not just managers being responsible. I've actually developed my own templates where it starts from the beginning when they start with the organization. And then you can use that data and information to benchmark at the review. And I want the employees to come to the review with their A game. More to come. So if individuals are interested, reach out to me. But the other thing is organizations have the opportunity to be able to make things happen, making sure employees have basic life insurance. It's pennies on the dollar. Okay. Being able to have EAP system, the employee assistance program, should be across the country. And there's still so many businesses right now that do not have it. It's not just allowing for the EAP, which allows an individual to talk to somebody confidentially, but they also offer trainings and various other perks and benefits, and it's completely confidential. WOTC, Worker Opportunity Tax Credit. It's an opportunity for businesses to be able to hire people, whether they're older, whether they're veterans, whatever the case may be. And it's a tax savings for companies over the long term. There's so many things that could evolve, creating company newsletters, recognize employees, doing a quick headshot and a bio of new hires as they're coming in, allowing people to feel heard. I don't care if you change a payroll system or a benefit plan, do an employee survey, have a town hall, hear your employees, hear your managers, know what's working and what's not, and do something about it. If you're going to do a suggestion box, don't just take the information for yourselves and be selfish. Take the information, sit down as a team from a few different departments, brainstorming together, and then present back to the employees to let them know that they're being heard, that you appreciate the feedback and insight, and here's certain things we're going to be able to implement. These are some other great ideas, maybe, next quarter, next year, and maybe this one might not work, and this is why. But allow them to feel their voices heard. If you're asking for feedback and you're not sharing afterwards the feedback with them, the next time you try to ask again, good luck, Charlie Brown. It's not gonna, you have to incentivize.
I love your passion. I love your energy. And hearing all of this, it's what makes a company a company. And I got you. You have the C-suite. They may be over here. A lot of times they're going to be disconnected from their employees, unfortunately, but they are dealing with other things. That's what exactly. That's where I'm going with that. Yeah. You are, and it's not. I think a lot of times to an employee, HR can be something that sounds good or something that sounds bad. Got to talk to HR. But
and I'm not your normal HR, but yeah, I hear it.
Right.
The Grim Reaper, all those.
Yeah. But on the flip side, there's so many benefits, and you're identifying a lot of those that I believe companies that they don't even know exist in terms of what's available in this country for companies and for employees. You have your finger on the pulse of all of that. Wow. Refreshing. I got to tell you. It really is. We have a couple of minutes left. You know what? Let's go right to how a company hires you, or even just has the conversation.
Yeah.
How do we do that?
So they can reach out either going to our website, which is www.soar-hr.com, or calling us at 1-800-684-7784. I hope I gave the right number. Yes, 1-800-684-7784.
Yes.
Or emailing me, Katie, Katie.Corum, CORUM @SOAR, SOAR-HR.com. More than happy to do a free 15-minute consultation to see, because I've said for the last just shy of 2 years, before my work anniversary comes up, that I want to build organic, genuine business relationships. If it's not a fit, if it's not a match, that's okay. I have a plethora of contacts in the HR community here in South Florida. I'm actually past president of the HR Palm Beach County SHRM chapter. So, all these HR professionals, they're amazing here in South Florida and across the US. So I'm more than happy to be able to share them with others. But yeah, absolutely. We can see where the challenges lie, do an HR assessment. I have clients that love that because it's kind of like the Cracker Jack box and the gift inside. They get to see, ooh, what did Katie, come up with? And it's literally based on me interviewing them and then typing up the documentation. It could be 5-10 pages long. And then I'm giving them my analysis and recommendations based on their information of color coding, green, yellow, red, where they're doing great, where there's potential risks, where they're at risk. And it's more of just a natural progression to say, okay, Katie, we absolutely want to do training and development. We want a performance management system in place. Can you help us with that? We need help with benefits open enrollment, and we need a handbook. Our handbook's 3 years old. So it's just a natural progression, but absolutely project-based, retainer-based, we can do monthly. Love doing that. So,
sure. And you mentioned Florida, but you can work with anybody, anywhere in the country.
Yes. I have clients outside of Florida. I actually have some that have European headquarters. Absolutely.
Fantastic. This is exciting. I never thought HR, I would get excited.
I told you, I'm not your normal HR person.
You're
Steve.
not. You're totally not. And
It's
you
fun.
have so many different things in your arsenal in terms of tools, technology, all of that. Would love to get to that next time we get together. But thanks for today. Really appreciate it.
Thank you. I appreciate you. Be well. God bless.
Yep.
May the force be with you.
Soon it will be May 4th. All right. We'll talk soon. Thanks a lot.
Steve. Be well.
We'll be right back.
Are you looking for even more of the podcasts and hosts that you love? The Podcast Business News Network is proud to announce that you now have even more ways to listen live. Check out the MyTuner Radio, online radio box, and Simple Radio apps on iOS and Android, or find us online. Search for Business News Network on mytuner-radio.com, or search Podcast Business News Network on streama.com and onlineradiobox.com/US. Take your podcast on the go and don't miss a minute of the action.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
For nearly 2,000 severely injured veterans, everyday life has become filled with barriers.
Day-to-day simple tasks can become pretty daunting.
I have to carry my chair up 2 flights of steps or have somebody do it for me.
What scares me the most is just the falling.
When I'm struggling with my house, I think, to have that one great barrier just knocked down, it's crucial.
Home for Our Troops is a wonderful nonprofit that builds a
mortgage-free, fully adaptive, handicap-accessible house. And there's no catch.
It'll be our very first home that we've ever owned.
This is a game changer.
This is where your life begins again.
We need you to join us in completing this important mission. Please visit hfotusa.org and help build homes and rebuild lives.
Because of you, everything's going to be okay.